With the World Cup starting this month, I've kind of been thinking about some soccer or football stories, depending on which part of the world you're in, and anime that I really enjoy. And then I got to thinking about how amazing Blue Lock is. However, with the more you see of the anime, the more you start to wonder, should I just read it instead? Oh. In this video, I'll give you 5 reasons as to why you should definitely pick up the manga of Blue Lock. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animal. If you haven't been here before and you end up enjoying this video, hopefully you'll end up subscribing by the end of it. As I stated, we'll be running through 5 reasons as to why, if you enjoy the anime of Blue Lock, you should definitely be picking up the manga. Here's reason number 1. The art. For those of you who may not know, the illustrator of Blue Lock has also worked on Attack on Titan. Well, if you read the manga of Attack on Titan, then you know just how intense the art style can be. This art is kind of brought to life in a very interesting way in terms of Blue Lock. The art in the manga oftentimes provides a lot more intensity and drama, sometimes in comparison to the anime. And because of this, you often feel yourself a little bit more invested and immersed in what the story has to offer. Also, the way that some of the goals, some of the dribbling, some of the tackle just suck you in because they are so beautifully and immensely drawn well. And the way that the art is composed across panels is also really fascinating. Like, in watching the anime, I had fun, I enjoyed it. It's fantastic seeing things in color, and sometimes they bring some of that raw artistic art that you see in the manga into the anime, but it is not portrayed as often, let me say that. And you're seeing it a little bit more frequently in the manga, which just has you more locked in, no pun intended. And something kind of already mentioned because of the art, reason number 2 is just more intensity and drama. Not only does the art obviously add to that, but there's also this element within the manga where there's less censorship. I think with most anime that we've encountered, if you've been watching anime for a very long time, there's oftentimes this censorship adaptation layer that's added onto anime. And while there's no blood and there's no gore that like they're kind of censoring in the anime, you'll see that there is definitely language censorship. The language that's often used within Blue Lock is a little bit more vulgar. And to be honest, it kind of makes you want to throw hands with the players sometimes when you see them kind of go off. And the kind of rivalry is a little bit more intense for that reason, because these guys, while kind of friendly in the locker room, are rivals on the field, and they just end up butting heads really hard. And even if they're not friendly in the locker room, just seeing how much animosity there really is has you only but questioning, like, how is this going to end? Because obviously there has to be a winner here, and what's the fallout gonna look like for the loser? And like, low-key, it's so much more intense and dramatic that like I oftentimes feel like I'm watching a real match, and I end up feeling like a real fan of some of the teams. Reason number 3 is that you get a better perspective and investment on the characters. So oftentimes, personally, when I feel like I'm watching the anime of Blue Lock, you often and mostly get things from Isagi's perspective. And because of this, and I've seen other creators and people online say this at times, that it can make the story feel a little stale for that reason. And as you know, there are many characters in Blue Lock, and some that kind of just end up falling off the face of the story very early on. So it kind of becomes a little bit difficult for you to become fully invested in some of these other side supporting characters that don't get a lot of screen time, or you don't get who they are through Isagi's perspective. The manga definitely allows you to see more of the reaction of other characters, their emotional investment into the Blue Lock program, their love behind soccer, and kind of their story. And even if these characters don't end up progressing very far in the program of Blue Lock, you definitely find yourself feeling a little bit more for some of these supporting side characters. And I will say that when you're watching the anime, sometimes you see a bunch of characters get eliminated and you just feel nothing. Like, you only really feel some weight for, you know, if it was a character that has gotten a lot of screen time. But unfortunately, for some of these minor characters, you feel like nothing. I think the manga definitely allows you to feel a little bit more for some of these minor characters for some of these reasons than you would in comparison to the anime. Because at the end of the day, you're supposed to feel that pain of seeing some of these characters get eliminated from the program and feel the pain of loss. Also, I feel like because there are so many characters, so many names, and you can kind of like read a manga at your own pace, and Blue Lock does this thing where they kind of try to tell you the name of the character again every couple of chapters. It does better for you as a reader to be invested in a character when you remember their name. Like low-key, before I jumped into the manga, when I was watching the anime, I'd be like, who's that again? Who's this again? I don't remember this person. What's their name again? And just by knowing a character's name, you feel a little bit more connected to them. Reason number 4 as to why you should pick up the manga of Blue Lock. There's a lot of thought process and dialogue going on with the action. Now, you would think that with that being said, this is where the anime could shine. You could see them moving while thinking at the same time, or see them moving and having dialogue all at the same time, and then it's kind of easier to follow in that fashion, right? Well, unfortunately, sometimes as you're watching the anime, it doesn't feel that way. Like, it's either there's action, or there's dialogue, or there's thought process, but like the characters are still, or the image is still. Let's say that. And to be honest, it makes it feel less like there's a soccer game in progress, and you just are reading or listening to what they're thinking or saying most of the time. It kind of decreases some of the drama and intensity that Blue Lock offers. And I think what is done so great in the manga is, obviously going back to the arts, is the illustration of movement. And the illustration of movement is not only done supremely well, but because you can take in all of the action in 1 or 2 pages, depending on the structuring of the panel, you can also kind of read the dialogue with it. And you can digest what you're reading at your own pace in a way, which is perfect for Blue Lock because you kind of have to read the thought process of Isagi, who's an extreme critical thinker of the game of soccer and is his biggest strength when it comes to his successes in the game. So I feel like this integration of the thought process that Isagi has, or even the thought process of other characters, while seeing the fluidity of the action so that it kind of doesn't halt the pacing of what's going on, is super critical to your investment in the story of Blue Lock. And last, I personally just feel like the motion of the game, any game that's happening in Blue Lock, is a little bit easier to follow in the manga. Because the art and the illustration of movement is so well done, you could kind of see where like a transition of the ball happens. You could kind of see sequence of plays better. And again, you would think this is where the anime shines. Well, because sometimes we're so zoned in on Isagi and his thought process, we don't get to see what's happening in the game. Sometimes we get the aerial point of view, which is great, but it can be a little bit tricky to see at times. And personally, as someone who loves the sport, I kind of want to see what's happening, even though, like, you know, we're getting Isagi's dialogue. But I feel like the manga really does a really good job in showing Isagi in one panel, like thinking, but then having a larger illustration kind of position in a way where you're seeing the ball moving and you're seeing the live action of the game at the same time. It allows me to stay invested like a lot better. And that investment is due to the fact that I can easily follow what's happening. And while that's not to say that the anime is not great, the anime has fantastic things that you can get out of it that you really cannot get in the manga. Some of those things being like the soundtrack and the voice acting. I really enjoyed the voice acting of Blue Lock. I actually don't know if there's an English dub, but I love the Japanese dub a lot. The soundtrack hit, I don't know, there are some really good moments and really good goals that have fantastic soundtracks attached to them. The little mini episode comedic moments that come at the end of every episode is always fun to see. They're kind of like slice of lifey. I actually don't remember if they're really in the manga like that. It's not like as present, but it kind of feels like it's a little bit more stretched out in the anime. And obviously that's not to say that there are not some fantastically beautifully in full color animated moments that you love to see from the manga. So I mean, the anime does have a lot going for it, but if you've watched it and want more, I highly encourage that you read the manga of Blue Lock, especially because 1, the World Cup is coming. 2, where we're at in the manga right now will make you feel, I guess, more in the World Cup spirit. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up, comment with your thoughts below, and share with a friend. And if you enjoyed this video and have not subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. However, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for being subbed to my channel and being part of the Animel community. I'm Mel, the host of Animel, and I will catch you all on the next one. Bye!